Our bodies have many systems that protect us from threats, whether they be visible threats such as a Canadian goose charging towards you, or invisible ones like viruses and bacteria. Visible threats are for the most part very straightforward to deal with. You run like your life depends on it. Invisible threats can be dealt with by our immune system, which fight off these microscopic invaders. Since our immune system only responds to threats that have already entered the body, it only takes one mistake to develop serious illness, and in some cases, death. There must be some mechanism that prevents illness in a more proactive way, and some scientists suggest that this ability may reside in our brain. Evolutionary psychologists have suggested that the behavioral immune system helps us respond to these eminent non-visible threats. Disgust elicited from a certain scent, visual, or auditory cue can warn us to avoid certain things, such as potentially poisonous mushrooms, or to avoid contamination from sick and potentially infectious individuals. Studies on the BIS have shown that we retain a better memory of objects that were touched by visibly ill people than normally healthy individuals. Seeing signs of illness, such as a runny nose, coughing, and diarrhea, all evoke feelings of disgust, and the BIS can help us remember these potentially contaminated objects better. Whereas many studies on the BIS focused on diseases where the patient had visible symptoms, Thibault et al. Wanted to see whether the improved memory of contaminated objects was also observed in a disease where symptoms were either not present at all or developed late in the course of illness, such as COVID-19. The participants were randomly split into a control and COVID-19 group. Both groups were shown images of everyday objects and were later asked to recall as many objects as they could. Participants in the COVID-19 group were told that their objects were handled by somebody who is incredibly ill with COVID-19 and is highly contagious. Thibault et al. Found that those in the COVID-19 group had a better memory of the objects than those of the control. During the peak of the COVID-19 pandemic, death tolls skyrocketed to the millions. Health authorities called for quarantining, masking, and heavy sanitation of public spaces, and even in a post-pandemic society like today, some of these habits remain. Unbeknownst to us, our BIS may have been working in the background to keep us from falling ill, tensing up at the faintest coughs, keeping track of who in your network interacted with potentially infected people, and being able to measure exactly 6 feet effortlessly with your eyes alone are all adaptations potentially generated by our BIS. Spending so much energy and attention paying attention to all this may seem excessive, but for our ancestors, taking these extra steps of caution could mean the difference between life and death. Surprisingly, Thibault et al. Also found fear to be a factor in activating a BIS response, whereas it was previously thought to be solely disgust. The behavioral immune system response is a relatively new focus of study, so research is ongoing and with many great discoveries yet to come. Next time you find yourself masking up in a large indoor area or avoiding certain friends you know have been around infected people, thank your behavioral immune system for keeping you safe.